Welcome back to another video, and today we are not dealing with dead flow, but instead we are moving from plumber to propulsion engineer. By that I mean we are building your velocity flywheel. So you're probably wondering, why velocity flywheel? So in the last video we were talking about dead flow, and today we are looking at a concept that's based off on a flywheel. So normally we know, right, that a flywheel is a heavy wheel that it's really hard to get moving initially, but the more you put force on it, the better, because as soon as it starts spinning, its own momentum makes it easier for it to keep going or to keep rolling, and it does store massive amounts of energy. So in personal and business systems, velocity is not just about speed, but it's more or less about momentum. It's about creating a self-reinforcing system that contributes to the idea of every action that's being placed upon it. It makes the next action easier and more impactful. So dead flow is not just friction, but it's more or less a force that grinds your flywheel to a halt. So our job is to eliminate that friction and to give our flywheel a push. So a simple example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an example in South African terms. By South African terms, since I'm in South Africa, let's take the idea of compound interest, in terms of habits also. If a person wants to save 100 rand, let's say this week, just one, it's good, but it's not gonna change your life. But saving 100 rand every week for 20 years, now that's life changing. So this habit of saving, so the system on its own, it creates what? Velocity. So the initial pull is going to be hard, whereby you'll be contemplating on whether should I save it, should I not. But as you keep on saving that 100 rand, the balance starts to grow. The interest earned itself starts to contribute to that amount of money that you're saving. So that on its own, it's basically like a financial flywheel. So we are going to apply this to everything. Transforming dead flow into velocity is a 3-step protocol. So let's use a practical example. Let's say you've just done a dead flow audit and found an extra 5 hours per week and 2,000 rand per month that was being wasted. It can also apply to not just rand but also dollars as well. So the first step, which is to recover, and it's the initial pull. So what we did last week was to identify a leak and then to recover the resources. So let's say for time, let's say you have 5 hours per week from mindless scrolling and inefficient work, and then you have this amount of cash, which is like 2,000 rand or dollars per month from unused subscriptions and impulsive spending. So this is your fuel for your flywheel. Step 2, which is to allocate with intent, meaning you are directing energy. So this is critical pivot. whereby most people just absorb the recovered resources back into the void, whereby you must be intentional on reinvesting them. So you don't just say you have 5 free hours, but instead you allocate them, whereby 2 hours is for maybe skills development, and then 3 hours is dedicated to high value client work. And in a different sense, when it comes to that 2,000 rand that's spread out, you can't just say you have just 2,000 rand in your account, but you can allocate it in a smart manner by saying, okay, how about I take 1,000 rand and put it in an investment account, and then 500 rand to a marketing campaign, and then 500 rand again to a self-care fund. You see, that way you are directing what? Flow, and not just stopping a leak. So the third step would be for you to amplify. So this is where you would create a system where it reinvests itself by paying back dividends and making the next cycle easier. Like for example, the 2 hour for skill development, it inevitably gonna lead to a new certification, which is gonna allow you to charge higher rates. The 500 rand marketing budget attracts one new customer or one new client, for example, who might be willing to pay, let's say, 5,000 rand. This new income is not dead flow. You immediately reinvest a portion of it back into the flywheel, meaning more skills, more marketing. That way the flywheel spins faster, making the initial effort self-sustaining momentum. So let's apply all of this in terms of business. Mainly, let's say client acquisition flywheel. Let's call it that. So by that we mean we applying the whole concept based off on a personal aspect, and then we put it on a business aspect, whereby we are gonna focus on getting clients. This is how you build practice, not just how you do projects. For example, let's take a consultancy flywheel. For example, a consultancy flywheel, we're gonna have a problem, which is to rely on constant, exhausting cold outreach, which is high friction and low velocity. And the solution to that is, let's think about the 3 steps. 1, to recover. You stop spending 10 hours a week on effective cold, like emails, which is dead flow. But instead, number 2, you allocate it. So you intentionally reinvest 5 of those hours into creating one killer value packed YouTube video, like what I'm doing right now, or article a week. And then the last step, which is to amplify. So the content demonstrates your expertise, which attracts inbound leads. That way, 1, you do great work for one of those leads. 2, you ask for a testimonial and a case study. 3, you use that case study as a basis for your next piece of content. And that way the new powerful content attracts even better clients. You see that loop? Yeah, it's content, it's attracting clients, attracting clients, which inevitably creates a case study, and then the case study fuels the better content. See, that flywheel on its own, it builds its own momentum, whereby you are no longer pushing, but this time you are guiding an ever accelerating system. So that, my friends, that's system velocity. So to recap, we have 3 steps. 1, recover your resources from deadflow. 2, allocate them with ruthless intention. 3, amplify by designing a self-reinforcing feedback loop. Your job is no longer to solve problems. It is to architect systems that create momentum. So your mission this week is to take, let's say number 1 is to find the leaks that are within your systems and ask yourself, how can I reinvest this recovered resource to a self-reinforcing loop? You check, that is a question that separates those that struggle and those that accelerate. So if you're ready to architect this for your business or your life, that's what I help my clients to do. So the link below is going to help you to apply for a complimentary velocity system down in the description below. So be sure to subscribe and hit that bell, because on the next episode we are going to be deconstructing a real world case study whereby we're going to apply deadflow audit and a velocity flywheel to a live business. You don't want to miss that.